Hello, everybody. We are back for episode 6 of the Geeks and Barbells podcast show. I'm still torn about this, people. Should I call it just Geeks and Barbells? It feels weird calling it the Geeks and Barbells podcast because it's on video, it's also an audio. So it's not just a podcast, it's a video format. Is it a show? I'm talking by myself. I might just call it Welcome to Geeks and Barbells. We'll see. We'll see how I feel after I'm done doing this video. Ooh, sorry, blurred. So today I wanted to do a small little talk about my ideas and concepts of health and how they relate to kind of the messed up culture we've created around health and fitness. Okay, so when I talk about health, I talk about people's eating patterns. I mean, the way they move, the way they train, the way they live their life, those kinds of things. This is going to be really short because I believe that is how it should be. There is not much to say, in a certain sense, about these topics. You can spend the next 20 years researching nutrition, fitness, health, lifestyle, all those kinds of things. But the reality is, when you're really talking in a general concept, uh, as a general concept, as a general idea, uh, you can't actually make blanket statements throughout for most countries, most people. I've said this before in other episodes. I've written about it before. The basics of what we know in terms of what is going to make you healthy, and I mean healthy. Again, what does it mean to be healthy? I will define it now for myself. When I speak of health for the individual, I mean you're feeling relatively good. That means you have relatively stable, good, solid energy per day. I mean, when I talk about the ability to move well, that means that you are strong enough and have enough endurance to do the basic day-to-day things that is a part of being human. That means being able to walk around for a decently long distance. It means being able to sit down, sit back up without pain, uh, fluidly. It means being able to walk into a forest or walk up a mountain to a decent degree without feeling like you're about to die. It means not having joint pains, no brain fog. Now, can this happen from one day to the next? Can it be that because you had a really bad night's sleep? Sorry, I think the lighting is going pretty bad. Uh, so, I mean, no one's perfect in the same way that you can't always be happy. Sadness happens. It's the same thing for energy levels. It's the same thing for pain. Depending on what you did the day before or that week, sometimes you'll have a bad day or a worse day, we'll say, comparatively to the other days. But when you're looking at the big picture per week, per month, per year, when we're talking about being healthy, it means that your overall graph is like still relatively positive. It's not going like this. It's not this amazing like shooting up to the sky, and that can happen obviously when you're making big changes in your life and going from feeling horrible to really great. But once you're at a stable point, you just want to feel good. I mean that's one of the problems with, let's say you change your lifestyle, you change all these things and you're feeling really good, and then people will go, well, why should I do this or why should I change that? I already feel good or I feel fine. But fine is very subjective. It's the same thing for people who take, if we were to look at it, really bad care of themselves. They don't do any focus on sleep. They're eating junk food all the time. They go out partying and they're like, but I feel fine. But it's because they've been doing that for the last 15 years and they have no way of telling what the difference is between feeling really, really good and feeling fine. Now, again, this is really difficult to quantify. What does it mean to feel good? It depends on the individual, and it also depends on what you are willing to put up with. I mean, the simple fact is this: there are some people, let's say, who have a genuine intolerance or an allergy to a food. Sorry, maybe not an allergy because they would possibly die. Let's say a genuine intolerance. Let's say they know that when they drink milk pretty consistently, they their nose is all congested and they get like some skin issues, but they love dairy products. They love them. And for that person, they're willing to put up with their minor irritations from the dairy so that they can have the pleasure of the food. That is your own choice. That's your own choice. Athletes do this. You take another extreme example. Many of the ways that athletes train is not healthy. It's not healthy in the slightest. They overtrain. They push their bodies too far. And many of those people, by the time they're in their 30s, sometimes 40s, they're broken. They have so many joint issues, tendon issues, ligament issues. They have to have multiple surgeries. They break themselves for their athletic endeavors, but for them, it is worth it. In the same way that someone who jumps out of an airplane and wingsuit dives and is this close to a cliff, the adrenaline rush and all that is worth it for them. They love the sense of adventure. They love pushing themselves to the limit. They love being near death. But the risk of dying is so amplified. It's insane comparatively to a normal day-to-day life. So you need to figure out before you start anything, any kind of thought about health, think this. What do I want? What am I willing to give up? And what am I willing to do? Okay, and then you figure out your goals from there. That is the thing that many people don't talk about. They're like, this, that, it doesn't matter. What matters is this idea of what are you hoping to get and what are you willing to give up for it. If you're not willing to give up a certain thing because the pleasure of that thing or whatever mindset you want to have about it is worth it for you, for the damage it does or the way it makes you feel, that's on you. We're all adults here. Now, when you're talking about, I mean, the things I talk about, which is creativity and how much output and effort we can put into the world and how these things affect us, then you need to make those decisions. How much are you willing to put up with in terms of lower energy or pain or discomfort in relation to the kind of work that you want to put out there, or even just the kind of effort you want to be able to produce. So, for example, take something as simple as gaming. Let's say you love gaming. You are a huge gamer, whether professional or for pleasure only, for leisure. You love gaming and you wanna win. You wanna beat that game. You wanna be the best that you can be in that video game. Well, then you need your brain and your body to be functioning like that. There's a lot of people who shit on gamers, but the simple fact is this: high-level gamers, even if you're not a professional, a high-level gamer, that means someone who has made this a big hobby, a big interest of theirs to maximize their potential in that field. There are many games that are extremely difficult. They take huge amount of time, huge amount of practice. They require huge amount of effort. Just like chess, no one would ever shit on a chess player who is at a high level, even in leisure. People just don't seem to realize that many games are much more difficult than chess. So if you're someone like that, you do want to maximize your potential. And to do that, yeah, it requires really good sleep. It requires taking care of yourself physically to one degree or another. Okay? It means you just need to at least be physically capable to buffer the usually sitting down and playing those kinds of games. And many games require huge amounts of hand-eye coordination. They require quick reflexes, quick thinking, being able to strategize really quickly. So you need to be functioning at a high level. Now, how high of a level you want to function, part of that is obviously just training for the game or training for the sport or training for your job, whatever it is. But a big part of that is making sure that your body's running on all cylinders. And you want the car to be tip-top shape. So again, you need to choose what you're willing to give up and the level of effort you're willing to put into taking care of your body and your mind for that thing that you're doing. After you've made those decisions, then when you start thinking, well, how am I going to change my lifestyle? The only stuff we really know, relatively, like the information is solid online, is we need good sleep. How much sleep? Science is kind of wonky on that. Do you need 8 hours? Do you need 9 hours? Do you need 6? I think we have enough science to back up the fact that more than 6 is probably good. Our body goes through REM cycles. They're 90-minute cycles. Okay, so every hour and a half, you go through a full cycle. So every time you get through at least one cycle, you feel better. There's more cleanup happening within the system. Melatonin is released. Melatonin is the hormone that is responsible for helping us not only fall asleep, get into that ready state for sleep, but it's a huge, powerful antioxidant within the system, helps clean up the brain, helps clean up the body, and of course, there's many other factors that go into sleep. So you want to get as many cycles per night as possible, as many 90-minute cycles. Now, how many you need is very, very dependent on genetics, your lifestyle, the amount of physical activity, how much brain usage you're doing. I mean, someone who's a particle physicist who's studying at a super high level, let's face it, is utilizing a lot more energy within the brain than someone who is just sitting down watching television for most of their day. So you need to think about that. How much effort are you producing within a day? What kind of things are you doing? And how much sleep do you need to buffer that? Now, there's many people who sleep too little, and they buffer that with caffeine. They drink a lot of coffee, energy drinks, tea. They push through it. It doesn't matter. I don't need sleep. That is not logical. If that's something you want to do, though, that is your choice. There are going to be consequences in the long run. So you need to figure out the best ways to maximize your sleep, the amount of sleep that you're willing to give yourself. If it's 6 hours, fine, maximize that 6 hours. What do we know science-wise? Usually you want to have a decently cold room. Usually you want your room to be as dark as possible, as pitch black as possible. Okay, you want no light, any kind of light. Okay, and that is leading up to sleep and during sleep. So what we know is that you want to produce and secrete as much melatonin and have as much cortisol drop as possible leading up to sleep. That means if your sleep time is going to be 11, well then at the very least at 10, if not earlier, 9, 8, the earlier you can start dimming lights, having only red lights in your room. Having filters on your phone and your laptop that reduce blue light production. Relaxing and calming down. The last hour before bed, as far as I'm concerned, you should have no electronics. If you have lights on, they should be red. You should be doing things that are pleasurable. That means talking with your partner, maybe having a chat on the phone with your friend, but keep the phone on speakerphone or headphones. Read a book, meditate, just relax, do some writing, whatever it is that relaxes you. That last hour before bed should be shut off. And having a bedtime. And a lot of students fuck themselves up on this. You should not be going to bed at 2 one day, 12 the next, 11 the next day, and you can't make that up. You can maybe buffer it a little bit with better naps, but overall, you need to have a set sleep time. And so the body functions well on ritual. This is another habit to think of. The more you ritualize your day, the more you make a routine, the better your system will function. That's with sleep, that's with eating. If you eat around the same times every day, your body will start to get used to it. It will produce enzymes, raise stomach acid. The body knows. And so when you go to bed at the same time, wake up at the same time, the body will start syncing better. It will produce the right hormones at the right times, and you will get a deeper quality sleep. And that's what we're really talking about here. It's about the quality of your sleep, not the quantity, although the quantity can be important, of course, but the quality is the most important. So you want to have the deepest quality sleep so that you rest and recover to the maximum capacity. After that, the only other stuff we can say is that you want to be eating enough food, getting enough calories so that you, first of all, have enough calories, enough energy coming into the system so that you can produce all the hormones, enzymes, and just simply the energy that your body needs to function. Every single organ requires energy. Your brain requires energy. If you're being physically active, if you're gaming, if you're reading a book, if you're doing a project, everything requires energy. So you need to be eating enough food to actually produce that energy. After that, you also want to be eating enough food that you are getting the vitamins, the minerals that your body needs. and all the other little things that come from food, antioxidants, all sorts of stuff. So that is important. You want to be eating enough food. Now, what does that mean if you're an overweight person? Well, it might mean that you still want to eat enough food to actually allow your body to function. But that might mean that, I'm making this up, but let's say your body needs 2,500 calories to function at full rate, get enough vitamins, minerals, blah, blah, blah. Well, possibly because you're overweight now, well, you can chunk that down to 2,300 calories, 2,200 calories. It just has to be a small deficit, and that's the best thing you can do. You don't want to do these gigantic deficits that will mess up your metabolism. So these small little deficits will allow the system to be going and picking at your fat stores. And then around the context of a healthy lifestyle, that means sleeping well and just moving, not training, moving, just being physically active so the body is burning those calories. Uh, and hopefully in that movement, there is some activity that allows your body to develop a little bit of muscle mass. Muscle mass allows you to expend more energy so you can maintain your calories without having to drop too low, but still your body's in a deficit because you are being more physically active. Too many people, though, they do this through like 4 hours of cardio and training like they don't train well. You're much better off focusing on sleep. This we know. You're much better off when you're thinking of gaining weight. Losing weight, and just for your overall health, is to just move a lot. That means walking everywhere, moving around, picking stuff up, and then sleeping like a champion and eating well. And again, what does that mean to eat well? So outside of the simply getting enough calories so that you have the nutrients and the energy your body requires, you want to be eating well, and that is so dependent on you. Some people have, because of different genetics, different environments they grew up in, different bacterial colonies within the intestinal tract, different points in their life, your age, your sex, how tall you are, how high you are, how much physical activity you're actually doing in a day. This completely changes the scope of what kind of food is going to make sense for you. So someone who is allergic to peanuts obviously cannot eat peanuts. Someone who has a slight intolerance to peanuts, which could be for a variety of reasons, maybe the bacteria that are within your intestinal tract for whatever reason don't assimilate peanuts well. Maybe your immune system, because of things that happen, is overreacting to peanuts. Maybe you don't have a full-blown allergy, but you're just sensitive to it when you come in. I mean, all plants don't have claws. So they need to protect themselves. Themselves? Did that come out weird? Themselves. Uh, through toxins, through chemicals. So we have aflatoxins, we have oxalates, we have lectins, we have uh, gluten, which gluten is actually a catch-all term we use for many different kinds of proteins that exist within plants, one state or another. So there's so many different things that different people react to, and it can shift and change depending on the point of their life. So you need to figure out what works for you. Now, if you're someone who is sick, and by sick I mean has a relatively serious medical issue, that means, and that could be something as simple as you are in pain every day, like consistent joint pain every day. I consider that to be sick. You wake up every day and your brain fog is so intense, you feel a pressure on your head and you can't get rid of it. You are sick. That is not normal. You are bloated and gassy and so uncomfortable that you have trouble breathing many times. That is sickness. Okay, that means you need to take a look at your food. And of course, there's more serious sickness. Let's be on the scope of what we're talking about here. If you have cancer or some kind of autoimmune disease, that is beyond what I'm talking about here. That means you need to be even more strict and you need to be getting medical help. But for the more basic, we'll say sicknesses or just discomforts, we're not even talking about sickness. Let's say you just discomfort and your energy is all over the place. You need to start thinking about this. Now, there are elimination diets out there. There are ways to literally bring yourself down to the most simplest, most basics of foods, and then start playing around and journaling and tracking yourself and see oh, let's go as extreme as possible. Let's say you do a carnivore diet and you've eliminated everything except for animal products. And let's say you feel amazing on the carnivore diet. At first, you feel a bit wonky because you've eliminated big glucose foods like carbohydrates. But let's say you start going into it, and after 2 weeks or so, you adapt and you feel really great. Your brain fog's gone, your joint pain is gone. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means that maybe something you were eating from the plant kingdom was bothering you, was irritating you. You were not digesting it well. Does that mean you can't eat any plants in your life? No, that's insane. It could be very, very specific things. Let's say it's oxalates. So oxalates, I'm not an expert. Oxalates are something you find very, very easily in plant food, in beans, in nuts especially. And so maybe you are someone who is sensitive to oxalates. Uh, so it could be that the best thing for you is never to have plants. It could be. That's just how it is. Maybe grains do it for you. Maybe you can have some plants, but grains, forget about it. Okay? Because of other things like gluten. You need to figure that stuff out. Maybe meat doesn't work well for you, or maybe specific kinds of meat. Maybe you can eat tons of beef, but when you eat chicken, possibly because of the amino acid composition, possibly because maybe it's not the chicken itself, maybe it's chicken fat because of its omega-6 to 3 ratio for you starts to make some kinks. Maybe you just do phenomenally well on fish. A lot of this also has to do with genetics. Where are you from? Are you like me, who's a Caucasian mix of Germanic and French origin with some Spanish and Irish? So there's a general diet, like style of eating that's been around there for quite a few centuries. If you are of Asian descent or North African or South African, I say South African, basically people understand the separation between the North African countries and those further south. Are you Russian descent, where it's a big mix? Are you an Aboriginal from Australia? Are you a Maori? Are you from New Zealand? Where are you from? Where are your parents from? And that can give you a little bit of a general idea and see those things. And then you have to be honest about the fact that, okay, yes, maybe this is my ancestral uh, um, starting point, but what has my family been doing in the last couple of generations? How have they been eating? What have I been eating? What's my environment like? Again, what is my lifestyle? What do I want my lifestyle to be? All these factors go into play of your food. Now the easiest way is easiest in a certain sense, it requires a good amount of discipline and willpower for a short period of time, but you can just eliminate a huge chunk of things and then build yourself back up. Or maybe there is a lifestyle, a way of eating that you've noticed. It could be vegan, it could be vegetarian, it could be paleo, it could be keto, whatever it is that you look at it and you're like, this makes sense to me. I like the concepts of it. I like these kinds of foods. And you honestly try it out fully to the best of your ability, the best quality. You've done some good research. You try it out and you very honestly judge yourself on how you look, feel, and perform. This is something that one of the people I enjoy listening to, Rob Wolf, he talks about. You judge yourself. How do you look? How do you feel? How do you perform? 3 factors. How is your body reacting to it in terms of the aesthetics? How do you emotionally feel? How does your energy feel? And how do you perform in a sense? There's the basics of how you feel in energy terms of like, I feel good today, everything's great. But if you then go to perform, that means you do any kind of mental or physical task that is relatively arduous and you feel like garbage after like 15 minutes, something is not functioning. But again, this goes back to what are you willing to give up? If you're someone who's the high level performance side, you're willing to give up a little bit because you just feel good. Okay, you have good energy and good like for the normal stuff day to day, and aesthetically you look good, you're comfortable where you're at. You can't like high level perform, but because you don't want to give up, let's say, the cake that you really enjoy or certain foods that bother you, like I said, for the dairy, but you're willing to give up that high level performance for a more, for you, stable life that includes things that if you removed would make you perform better, but you don't really care. That's up to you. You need to figure that shit out. There is no one size fits all approach. There is no one way to do things. There's no one way to live. Everyone has to figure out what they're willing to put up with and what they're willing to put out to perform to the degree that they want to perform. So, like I said, you want some good quality sleep. You want some good food, which is very dependent on you. Do the research, be open minded. Don't become religious about something. Don't become a zealot. Don't think that just because something works really well for you, it's going to work well for everybody. Don't become an ethical bastard about things. And I'm very serious about this. I think the ethics of, how can I say this? I think it is extremely important how we treat animals. I think it is extremely important the effect that our animal raising has in the environment. That being said, all of nutrition science, a lot of environmental science is in its infancy. Uh, Everything I've read and seen on both sides of many different camps shows that if you treat our animals ethically, that means I'm not talking about not killing an animal. I'm talking about treating it well. That means while it's alive, it has a good life. Okay? That means as a good life for an animal is not the same as humans because we are interacting with each other and living a life of consciousness that is just very different depending on the animal. But when we're talking about animals being raised for food and even plants, I consider plants to be alive and they should get a good life while we're growing them. I'm actually, this is my personal opinion, I'm quite against monocropping. I think rice and corn and wheat, although they can be beneficial for some people or just neutral, the way we grow them, because of our incredibly large populations, it is terrible for the environment and it treats the plants like shit. You just monocrop the crap out of them, we destroy the soil. It's bad. When you talk about animal husbandry, I am quite against factory farming. I think the ethics of how we treat those animals within. Now, I am actually quite against the way many people, and unfortunately, this comes from the vegan and vegetarian camps, and just people who are not even vegan vegetarian, but they see too many documentaries that don't base anything in actual facts. It's just very emotional. People don't understand that for many parts of the world, okay, the factory farming systems are not the same. The factory farms in Canada are not the same as in the States. And even within the States, not every factory farm is treating the animals in the same way. So you see these really terrible, unfortunate videos of animals being mistreated, and then people go, it's like that everywhere. It's not like that everywhere. It's not. And then of course when you're just talking about animal husbandry, the ethics of it, there are many farms throughout the entire world. Some it's just because that's how it's been done traditionally for the longest time, and some places where the people in the, we'll say, westernized countries, they respect their animals a lot. These are beautiful people who respect animals. They treat them as well as they can be. They feed them as well as can be. They're grazing on grass. They're grazing on bugs. They're eating high quality food, and they're taken care of until the moment when, yes, we kill them for food. That is your own personal choice. If you do not believe that we should kill animals, I personally believe that we are animals. We are part of the cycle of life. This idea that we are some kind of special being that should not ever kill another creature because we're so fucking unique. I think that is part of the issue. Humans for too long have thought of themselves as being separate, that we're special, that we're unique, that we are some kind of dainty dog. We have a responsibility, as far as I'm concerned, to be shepherds because of the power we hold, because of our consciousness, because of our technology. It is our responsibility to be shepherds, but we are not angels. We eat other creatures. Things always die. It is part of the cycle of nature. If you cannot accept that, go vegan. That is perfectly fine. But when you start telling other people that they're evil because they eat meat, because an animal or a thing died, plants died for you, bugs died. There's always something dying. And if you think that because a cow goes moo and is slightly smarter in terms of like it can make noise like a human and look at us with eyes like a human, you're a bit of an arrogant shit. I think you're coming at it from an arrogant point. Plants are extremely complex, and We require plants to survive on this planet. Plants are some of the most complex creatures. Plants, mushrooms, these things, when you get into the science of fungi and the way they're interconnected with trees and other herbs and plants and fruits, it's insane. Insane, the complexity. Just as insane as the complexity of a human being is, and a cow. Everything is complex, everything is beautiful, everything is magic as far as I'm concerned. And so people need to kind of, again, this is your own personal choice. If you just emotionally can't handle the idea of a mammal, because that's what it is, a mammal dying for you, okay, fine. Just don't eat mammals. That's cool. Eat your plants, or possibly if you're a pescatarian, eat fish, whatever it is. But although fish, no, they're not mammals. Had a brain fart right there. But it's up to you. It's really up to you. Find what works for you. And when you're thinking of the ethics of how an animal is being raised and treated, I think that's extremely important. But again, that's up to you. Again, it matters your financial situation, what you can afford. Because let's face it, there are price gaps, huge price gaps, depending on where you are, between an ethically raised, like grass-fed cow and a normal cow. And that's big part of that problem is the governments and how people look at things and how things are subsidized. And a lot of that has to do with monocropping again, corn, rice, wheat. A lot of the monocropping and subsidies that go into those things fuck up our food production system like crazy. Unfortunately, a lot of that feeds into, we're just way, way too many people at this point for how our systems are functioning. When you want to get into the environmental aspect, well, I do truly believe if people look this up online, you understand, even if you're not even thinking of eating animals, when you look at how animal husbandry is used throughout the world in ethical senses, with regenerative farming, uh, animals, plants, and humans, when done synergistically, can regenerate soil, sequester carbon, can create huge carbon sinks, can just bring back forests, can reverse deserts when animal husbandry and plant usage and foraging and proper shepherding by humans is done together. Because these things existed before we started taking over. Yeah? And that's another concept before anyone thinks. You need to understand that because there's so many of us, because humans are out where we're at, we can't change that right now. We are the apex predator. It is our responsibility we have to balance out the systems now in nature because we've taken over so much and changed so much. Now, if you want to be a doom and gloom, negative, pessimistic ass, then fine. Start a war. Start a war, kill half of our population. Go for it. Enjoy all the dead children, the dead women, the dead men. Have fun with that. Okay? But if you're not going to think like that, if you don't want to die, if you don't want your kids to die, if you just want, you have to accept the fact that we are where we are and we have to do the best with what we can, then there are better ethical and environmental ways that we can raise animals, raise plants, shepherd these systems, and just create beautiful landscapes through it. And these things are happening. If you look at Joel Salatin on Polyface Farms, if you look at the Alan Savory Institute, if you look at White Oak Pastures, these things exist, and you see them everywhere when you think of local uh, communities, especially in outside the European and Western countries. It's just chickens and plants and cows and buffalo, and they're all integrated into the local communities. Gardens and plant foods, they're everywhere. You see this in many places. It's just that we've just monetized and monocropped and big companied everything. So that's a little tangent, sorry, but these things need to be understood when people are choosing what kind of healthy way of eating, healthy lifestyle they want to have. A lot of these things factor in, so I wanted to mention them again, a little bit of my opinion, but again, how you should just think of these things. There are big picture things, but at the end of the day, go with what works for you. Go with what feels right in your heart. If you feel right, eating meat, go for it. I would say just try to source as much ethically raised, environmentally conscious meat as possible, if that is possible with your finances and you're right. and think of how it affects your own health. When you eat this stuff, how do you genuinely feel? How is it actually affecting you? Maybe get some blood tests. And the same has to do with vegetarianism, veganism, pescatarianism, keto. It doesn't matter. Be honest with yourself. Be honest about the effect the things you're eating are having on your local community, on your environment, how those things are ethically being treated, and then be honest about what you're actually capable of doing in terms of how they affect your health, how they genuinely make you look, feel, and perform, and what you can financially handle at that time, depending on your situation, your family situation, those kinds of things. So that's the big kicker when you're talking about health. And when we're talking about what we know about what makes us feel good, like the actual science and stuff, again, I repeat this: nutrition science, environmental science, these things are in their infancy. There is so much conflicting information. People need to understand the differences. I would recommend almost never getting any advice from news when it comes to health and environment, because it is in a journalist's best interest, especially these days, to sensationalize everything. You see like 30% increase in this kind of cancer because of meat. And the reality is that it's not really 30%. It's 30% as opposed to like you had a 2% chance of getting this kind of cancer if you're on a vegan diet, and you had a 2.6% increase if you're on a meat eating diet. 2%, 2.6% is nothing. But when they do your little mathematical equations, it's 30% increase. It's not. It is not really. But the journalist wants that because it catches people's attention. Going 2% to 2.6% on your article title, nobody gives a shit. But 30%, oh my God. And that's how people are. And a lot of studies, and this is for everything, vegan, vegetarianism, carnivore, any kind of thing. Most studies are bullshit. They are what's called epidemiological or observational studies. They are based off of asking people over the course of 5 years, how did you eat like this? I can barely remember what I ate yesterday. And that's how most people are. And we've done, again, actually high quality studies showing that people will lie. Even they don't mean to lie, but they will lie because they, depending on what they think is the right way to do something, the right way to eat, they feel bad, they don't want to be judged, and they'll change their answers. They remember differently. And so we cannot use these studies to make any kind of correlation or even a causation, which is like this actually does this. And sometimes we can, like when the studies were done on cigarettes and their effect on cancer rates, lung cancer specifically, it was like thousands of percent increases in your chance of getting lung cancer. That is a huge thing. But when you're looking at these minuscule changes between 2 to 2.6%, which is how most of these studies end up showing the differences between eating this way or that way or this way or that way, it's nonsense. It's redundant. And even when we do high-level studies, such as randomly controlled clinical trials, where we take like 2 or 3 groups and like this group eats like this group eats like that, we control everything. They're in a ward, everything's done. Even then, usually to make those studies happen, what they do is they'll take like between this age and this age, this specific kind of people, this specific kind of weight. They try to average it out. But that means it's only relevant to those kinds of people in that environment, in that situation. That doesn't account for how things are in real life with the stress and this and that and the shifting this and the sleep. It's super complicated. So be honest with yourself. Try to understand the general concepts. Try different things. Try different foods. See how you look. See how you feel. See how you perform. And then go off of that and make your own judgment of how you want to live your life. I personally want to perform at my best, not at an athlete's level. I don't want to change the world, but I want to look as good as I can, feel as great as I can, and perform as best as I can, so that I can do things like this, like create a podcast or write a book or play a game, have fun with my friends, have just conversations and debates, and just be firing on all cylinders. Does that mean I'll be perfect every day? No, but I want to do the best that I can and be aiming towards that. I want my scope to be going mostly like this, with some small dips. I don't want to be like this, and I definitely don't want to be going down, but I also don't want to be shooting up like a rocket. That's just not my personality. I'm not the AAA performer. Like, I just want to kill myself to perform at my best and then die young. So you need to choose again what works for you. And that's about it. I think we're at 40 minutes now. That's way longer than I thought I would go. So unfortunately, what I said at the beginning about keeping this short was a lie. I apologize. If you enjoy this kind of stuff, if you want to hear me talk more about specific topics, if you want me to get more into the itty-gritty of like what I really um, think might help in terms of nutrition or fitness, uh, leave a comment, subscribe, smash the like button, ask me some questions. I want to hear from people. If not, just enjoy the show, Geeks and Barbells show. Then we'll go with that, or maybe just Geeks and Barbells. I don't know anymore. I'm still picky. Have a great day. As always, everybody stay healthy. Let your geek freak fly. I can't speak today. I think I need to eat. I haven't eaten breakfast yet. So enjoy yourself, and I will see you for the next episode.